Ask unanimous consent that we consider the amendment to have been read.
Without objection, so ordered.
A once great city, Detroit, lies in ruins. 50,000 feral dogs roam the city. Abandoned houses litter the landscape. It is a bleak and forlorn future that awaits Detroit. Creditors clamor for nearly $20 billion in debt. City employees wonder if they'll be paid. There's not enough money to even replace the streetlights in Detroit. God forbid that a major fire break out. At some level, I think the president does care about Detroit, but today, all I can see is the billions of dollars, the billions of American tax dollars that he chooses to send overseas. I see the shiny new technology, America's best, going to arm people who are indifferent to us and at worst hate us. The president sends billions of dollars to Egypt in the form of advanced fighter planes and tanks. Meanwhile, Detroit crumbles. Chicago is a war zone. More people will die in Chicago this year than in Afghanistan. Yet the president insists on building a $34 million fort in Afghanistan. Hillary Clinton insists on spending $80 million on a consulate in Afghanistan that will never be used. As Detroit decays, Chicago's a maelstrom of violence, and yet no one questions sending billions of your dollars to Egypt, to despots, to dictators in foreign countries. Our nation's bridges are crumbling, and few politicians from either party will question that billions of dollars are being sent overseas while our nation's infrastructure is crumbling. The law is very clear. Everyone here in Congress can read. They recognize that the law says when there's a military coup, the aid must end. Today we will vote on whether or not they will obey the law or whether they will openly flout the law and disobey. When a military coup overturns a democratically elected government, all military aid must end. That's the law. There is no presidential waiver. The law states unequivocally that the aid must end. So when the military coup occurred in Egypt, how did the president respond? How did Congress respond? The president and his cohorts in Congress responded by shoveling good money after bad into the failed state of Egypt. The president is intent on building nations abroad and not taking care of our nation here at home. I propose that we take the $1 billion that is now being illegally given to Egypt and spend it at home. We have bridges crumbling at home. Can't we fix some of our problems at home? We've had a bridge collapse this year in Washington State. We had one collapse in Minnesota a few years ago. We have a bridge in northern Kentucky that is becoming increasingly unsafe, and yet there is not enough money to repair our bridges because your politicians are sending the money overseas. It's unwise, and right now it's illegal. Countries like Egypt are getting billions of dollars in aid. Meanwhile, they recently let a mob advance on our embassy, climb atop our embassy, and burn our flag. I say not one penny more to these countries that allow mobs to burn our flag. In between cashing our checks, Egypt finds time to convict 16 Americans on trumped-up political charges. Fortunately, the Americans were able to escape. They left the country, or we'd have 16 Americans imprisoned by Egypt. Luckily, these Americans were able to get out of the country. Now, how do these establishment politicians respond? How will the other side respond today when they get up and plead that we should break the law? What will they say about Detroit? What will they say about Chicago? What will they say about the bridges in northern Kentucky that won't be built because we're sending the money to countries that are burning our flag? I think it's unwise to send arms, particularly advanced arms, into the chaos of Egypt. I fear one day that someone may arise in Egypt who says, let's attack Israel with these planes. Let's attack Israel with these tanks. I fear these weapons that we are giving to Egypt may someday be used against America and our allies. Even the Egyptians don't want our aid. There was a Gallup poll last year that showed that 70% of Egyptians don't even want the money we're sending them. To understand why, you have to understand that American aid doesn't go to the Egyptian people. It goes to the despots and the dictators that run the place. You have to realize that when protesters gather in Cairo, when by the hundreds of thousands and even millions they gather in Tahrir Square, why are they unhappy with America? They're unhappy with America because they're being sprayed with tear gas, bought with American tax dollars, manufactured in Pennsylvania, and given to the Mubarak family or given to the military. Why are they unhappy? Foreign aid doesn't go to foreign people. It goes to foreign despots and foreign dictators. Foreign aid is more likely to buy a lavish chateau in Paris than it is to buy bread in Egypt. You send money to Egypt, it buys private jets for the Mubarak family to fly to Europe. The Mubarak family is said to have stolen billions of dollars of American aid. Over the past 30 years, Americans have been forced to finance the Mubarak family living large. So when you see pictures of depression in Detroit, when you see abandoned housing in Detroit, when you see boarded up housing, when you see 50,000 feral dogs running through the streets of Detroit, when you see a once great country, a once great nation, a once great city lying in decay, you think about your politicians who chose to send that money to Egypt and not keep it here at home. As Detroit decays, as the money is stolen and squandered around the world, but as Detroit decays, as Chicago's overrun with violence, as Americans struggle to put food on the table, Mubarak and his family dined on caviar and champagne. As Mubarak flew to Europe for weekends on his jet and lived the life of a king, his people rotted in jail indefinitely, without charge, without trial. They've been living under martial law for 30 years. You wonder why they're unhappy with us? We've been financing the guy that's been giving them martial law and indefinite detention without trial for 30 years. To add insult to injury, when they protest against their government, they're doused with tear gas made in our country. Foreign aid doesn't go to foreign people. It goes to despots and dictators. The president claims that he feels your pain. The president says he can feel the pain and he wants to help the middle class. But it seems like he wants and intends to help foreign people, foreign countries, more than he wants to help America. The president promised us hope and change, but the more he claims that things change, I think the more they stay the same. I wanted to believe that the president would be different. I wanted to believe that he would bring change. I wanted to believe that he would stand up to the arms race, to the military-industrial complex, that he would stop the flow of arms to despots and dictators across the planet. But hope and change just turned out to be a slogan. In Detroit and Chicago and in the once great cities of America, no change came. Hope and change was just a slogan. The poverty, the murders, the abysmal schools, they continued. Where are you, Mr. President? Where are you when in our hour of need in our country, why are you sending our money to people who hate us? Why are you sending arms to countries that don't like us or our allies? Why would we do that? The president maintains he will end the war in Afghanistan, and I support him. But he insists on fighting new wars secretly without congressional approval in Libya and Syria. While Detroit decays and descends into bankruptcy, the president, like so many Republicans before him, continues to send American tax dollars overseas to countries that persecute and kill Christians. Hope and change. I guess it was just a slogan. The law clearly states that when you have a military coup overturning an elected government, the military aid must end. Even the president doesn't dispute the law. He doesn't even dispute it's a coup. But he just says, I'm not gonna say it's not a coup or a coup. You can't make me. It's ridiculous that any intelligent person in our country, and I wonder if any from the other side will stand up and say it's not a coup. How do you say when the military takes over a country and boots out a government that it's not a coup? Only a fool or a demagogue would attempt to argue that the military junta in Egypt is not a coup, that the military takeover that actually installed the lead general as deputy prime minister is somehow not a coup.
Would the senator yield for a unanimous consent request?
Not yet. In a remarkable bit of sophistry, the president admits that the law does not mandate an end to military aid when a coup takes place. He says it does, but he says it can't make him decide. So he's not going to decide whether there was a coup or not. What it is it's brazen and open flouting of the law. The president's argument reminds me of a third grader at recess. A third grader says, he won't call it a coup and you can't make him. It's absurd. We passed a law. It's the law of the land. Says if a coup happens, if the military takes over or participates in a substantial way in removing an elected government, that the military aid ends. So we're either a nation of laws or we're not. So when the president refuses to acknowledge that it's a coup, that it's not yet an acknowledged coup, he just says the aid's going to go on indefinitely. He will go on indefinitely flouting the law. Americans should be outraged and insulted by such blatant shirking of the law. Either we're a nation of laws or we're not. Will we obey the law or not? We have the presumption to tell the world how to behave, to criticize Egypt for not obeying the rule of law, all legitimate concerns, and yet the president blithely ignores our own law. If we choose to ignore our own laws, can we with a straight face preach to the rest of the world about the rule of law? I think by openly flouting our own laws, we take away from our ability to lead the world. We take away from our moral authority to show the right way. We always have been. America's always been the leader by example. But how do we lead by example when we're not going to obey our own laws? There really is a question. Are we a monarchy or a republic? Are we to be ruled by caprice? If we pick and choose which laws to obey, what message does that send? I say to all Americans, Democrats, independents, and Republicans, that enough's enough. We aren't going to take it anymore. Call your representatives, tell them enough already. Tell them to take care of our country. Tell them not one penny more to countries that are burning our flag. Mr. President, I suggest that today we do something historic and listen to the American people. The American people don't want good money after bad shoveled and sent overseas. They want to fix some of the problems we have at home. They want to do some nation building here at home. My amendment that I will introduce shortly will give your representatives a chance to vote for this. We're going to say, yes, we will obey the law. We're not sending any more weapons to Egypt, and we're going to take the money and we're going to build some bridges in our country. We're going to repair some roads. We're going to work on some infrastructure here at home. Everybody seems to say they're for it. In fact, the president has now come out and he says he wants some grand bargain to take some new money and actually work on infrastructure. Mr. President, it's right here. I'm offering it today. Mr. President, I have another amendment that would say all foreign profit can come home at 5%. We take that revenue and we build new bridges. They won't even let me vote on that one. So the president's grand bargain to increase infrastructure spending, I've got it. It's here on the floor. Mr. President, call the leadership of the Senate. Tell them it's on the floor and you support this, that you want infrastructure spending. I have a bill that would do precisely that. This amendment will do a little bit in that direction. Take the $1 billion we spent in Egypt and spend it in America. So when you see the pictures on the news of what's going on in Detroit, if you live in Detroit and you're suffering through the bankruptcy of your city, if you see around you the chaos and poverty of Detroit, you look and call the president. You say, Mr. President, why are you sending that money to Egypt? Why are you sending money overseas when our nation is crumbling, our cities are crumbling, our infrastructure is crumbling, our bridges are crumbling, and the president says, I'm just going to send that to Egypt. I'm going to send that overseas. This amendment will give everyone a chance to put their money where their mouth is, to say, do you care about America? Do you care about repairing American infrastructure? Or do you care more about sending money to a dictatorship in Egypt? I think the choice is clear. I think if you ask the American people, 3/4 or more of them, I think maybe nearly 100% of the American people are with me. Let's spend that money at home. Let's don't send that money overseas to people who hate us, to people who burn our flag. Keep it at home. There is a finite amount of money. We can't do everything. We can't fix everything if we have to fix everybody else's problems first. Let's address some of the needs we have here at home. So, Mr. President, I encourage a yes vote to keep the money at home and not to send this overseas, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Mr. President.